Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and thank you very much for making some time out of your day to spend with me and watch the video. Always much appreciated there. Guys, today we're going to be talking about fishing in heavy winds. In other words, the days when the wind's blowing like 20 miles an hour, those 20, 25 mile an hour wind days that nobody really likes to go out when it's blowing like that, but at times it can be really good fishing. So we're sort of going to have a wide-ranging topic on some approaches that you can use to fish during those really windy days. Also, guys, before we get started, just one quick housekeeping tip. I just want to invite everybody, and not only invite everybody, but I want to give a big thanks to everybody that's been using my tackle warehouse links in the description to purchase your tackle. By using and bookmarking that link to buy your tackle, guys, you're doing more to support the channel than any other way. So thank you very much for you guys that are taking part of that. Big thank you for me and my family there. Okay, guys, one of the reasons I wanted to do this video today is I just got done with the first day of the tournament at our Grand Lake Toyota Series tournament, and it blew like a mother today. Which is, I mean, you're seeing this video the day after, but it blew like a mother the first day of the tournament here yesterday. We had sustained winds of probably 25 to 30 with gusts. I mean, blowing super hard. Now, here's the thing about it. It's like one of the things that you have to realize when you have a heavy wind day, when the wind's blowing hard, right off the bat, guys, you have to have an attitude adjustment, because you got two different ways to think of it. Some people are going to say, God, it's blowing like crazy. Fishing's going to suck today. It's going to be hard to move around. And, it's going to be terrible out there. Or you can say, man, the wind's blowing really hard today. It's going to fire those big fish up, and I'm going to be able to catch them, in ways that I couldn't catch them if the wind wasn't blowing hard. So you have to have an attitude adjustment. That's going to help you big time right off the bat. And don't fight it. I mean, you have to accept it, and you have to use it. You have to use that heavy wind to your advantage. And you do that by adjusting your techniques. So first of all, guys, when you're fishing in heavy wind like that, most of the time it's a power fishing deal. Most of the time you're going to have to be fishing moving baits, simply because the efficiency of it. Not only the efficiency of it, but the wind will activate the fish a lot more, especially if that water temperature is over like 50, 55 degrees. If you're dealing with water temperatures of, like I said, say 55 degrees or warmer, wind is usually always a good thing as far as to activate the fish. Now, the only thing, one counter to that is if you have a hard wind that comes after a front, like a north wind, something like that with the bluebird, they'll still bite into those conditions, but it can make it a little bit tougher. The ideal situation is a south or southwest or west wind when it's blowing heavy. That really turns the fish on. So the thing that I like to do is, if I know it's going to be a windy day, regardless about how I was fishing, I want to adjust my techniques to fish power fishing techniques. Now, today was a prime example. I'll give you guys a prime example at Grand Lake. I was catching my fish just methodically in practice, pitching and flipping shallow cover, lay downs, docks, whatever was in the water there, just soft plastics and jigs. And I really had to work slow. And I got out there today, and it was so windy that I just couldn't hardly fish it. I got into some protected areas and I was able to pitch and flip around, but that's not where those fish were. Those fish were on those areas that were getting hit pretty hard by the wind. So the second stop that I made, I changed up and I put on a big shallow running crankbait, a big fat shallow running crankbait, that Megabass 2.0 S crank. And I started fishing those heavy wind banks, these banks that were getting hammered by the wind. And right off the bat, I caught my three best fish on that crankbait in the heavy wind. And I hadn't been catching anything on a crankbait. I mean, the wind just fired them up. I could have probably caught them on a spinnerbait too. So the first thing that you want to do when you're fishing in heavy wind, there's three baits that work really good. Is a spinnerbait or a chatterbait. I sort of consider them those the same type of things there. Spinnerbait or chatterbait, some type of a crankbait, and also a jerkbait can be really good if the wind's blowing. Those three baits out there, those baits that come horizontally through the water column where you can move them faster and create a reaction strike from those aggressive fish from the wind, is what you want to do. Now, sometimes the fish don't want that. Like, say for example, if the fish are locked down spawning, or maybe if the water temperature is a little bit on the cooler side, closer to 50 degrees, a lot of times they still want a slower bottom type bait. Now, in a situation like that, sometimes you just have to put a heavier bait on. If you were throwing a 1/8 ounce shaky head, you may have to go to a 1/4 ounce. If you were throwing a 3/8 ounce jig, you may have to go to a 5/8 ounce. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting the bait down there. But more than not, it's a power fishing situation. And the thing that you want to look at is you want to look at those areas that are normally not getting hit by wind, and those fish will reposition once that wind starts biting, once that wind starts, hitting it really hard. So pay close attention to how your areas lay out as far as what position they are in the lake. Now, another thing that has a factor in it besides water temperature is water clarity. Unless the water is like really muddy, wind is always going to be a helpful thing. If you have dirty water though, say the water visibility is under 1.5 feet or so, if you got visibility maybe 6 inches, a 1.5 feet, those are the type of areas that you don't do that well on those windy days with those moving baits out there. In a situation like that, I usually always try to look for some type of protected water if I'm in dirty water, because it doesn't activate them. It's almost like in that dirty water, the wind, it decreases their visibility so much that it just sort of turns them off. But in clear water, it's the direct opposite. If you got water visibility over 2 or 3 feet, wind is always a plus, unless the water, again, is super cold. So always take advantage of that. It's like if that water visibility is 2.5 feet or greater, and that wind's blowing 25, I'm always fishing a moving bait, maybe big swim bait, glide bait, something like that. But that's sort of what I found with it. But the main thing, guys, if I could give you, a big piece of advice, is get out there and fish in the wind, fish the windiest banks you can without falling out of the boat, and fish big moving baits, big power baits. And, a lot of times you'll catch a big bag of fish doing that. So anyway, hope it helps out. We'll talk later.